When I first started using Git for the first time, I basically just thought of Git as some kind of glorified backup system. So my thinking was, if my computer ever got nuked or anything, if I used Git, then at least all of my code is going to be backed up on GitHub or something like that. And so I would just use Git in order to basically make regularly scheduled backups of my code. Whenever I finished working on something, I would just commit everything, I wouldn't really think too much about it, and just push it up to GitHub. And of course, that's not really the purpose of Git at all, but it's easy to see how somebody could be confused like that. And so whenever I had those kinds of ideas about Git, I basically didn't put a whole lot of thought into my commits. So just as an example, I'm in this Git repository right now. This is my personal website, and I can run Git status right now and see all of the files not staged for commit, all of the untracked files right here. And it's easy to see something like this and say, okay, it's been a while since I last committed to Git. I should probably commit these all now, and just go through and type git add everything right here and just go ahead and commit everything in one big go. There's a whole bunch of different stuff that I did here. So I removed a contact page, I updated the CSS, I changed some templates right here. But before, what I might have done is just focus on, okay, I changed the layouts, I changed some templates right here. So I'll just write the commit message, something like updated templates right here, and just commit that and commit all of this other stuff with that. Never mind the fact that some of this is completely unrelated to everything else. And so the problem with this approach of not really thinking through your commits and what all goes into a commit can lead to some big problems down the line. And Git basically has a staging area for a reason. It's not just supposed to be something where you just add all the files to the staging areas and then go ahead and commit everything without thinking about it. So there's a staging area so you can deliberately decide which files that you want to add to this commit. Because grouping changes that you make together in Git into one single commit is a good way to organize things. So just as an example, and this doesn't even necessarily apply just to teams, maybe you're thinking, okay, in my solo projects, I don't really care that much because it's only me looking at the code, so I don't really care if my teammates are going to think that I'm messy. But even in a solo project where you're the only person committing to this repository, sometimes maybe I'm making an application, this has happened to me before, and I run into some bug. And I want to go back through the Git log and basically see where I went wrong with this, and basically see where the bug started. But if I just have some very vague Git commit messages where it just said, added some stuff or fixed some bugs, well, I don't know which bugs I fixed. I don't know what the problem was initially. I don't know what specifically I fixed. All I know is that I fixed some bugs somewhere in the application. Could be a really big application, and I have no idea which specific bugs I fixed. So if I want to go and search through the Git log, then it's just going to be a nightmare trying to find where I changed it originally. And so just for solo projects, having a nice clean Git log that you can scroll back through and see exactly what you changed and when is extremely useful to have. So if, for example, I wanted to commit all of these files that I have right here, let's close this out and go back to Git status right here and see everything that we have here. Instead of just one big commit, what I might do is just, okay, git add this content/contact right here. So I could do that. And then I could specifically make a commit just where I delete this contact page, because it isn't really related to anything else. It's not like I'm doing a complete redesign of the website. It's just I wanted to remove this one file. And you might think that that's too small for just a single Git commit. Maybe you don't really think it's worth committing unless you have a few different changes to make. And you might think that if you put in too many small Git commits, you're just going to be cluttering up the Git log with these small frivolous commits. And for me personally, I just think that it's better to commit more than to commit less. I like to err on the side of committing more, just because, like I said, it helps me to find things in the Git log if I really want to. And if that's all that I did in this little work session is just go through and delete the contact page, then that's enough for a Git commit. Obviously, if I did more, like if I changed a whole bunch of templates, I added a whole new shortcodes folder right here. So maybe I could group those together inside a single commit if they're all related to each other. I could maybe make the git commit message added shortcodes and added them to the templates. But don't be afraid of making very small commits. Could be something as small as changing the background color of a header inside your website, inside the CSS. If that's all you're doing with the design, that's good enough for a git commit. And if you're really worried about annoying people with a ton of small commits, you can just combine these all together. You can squash all these commits together into a single commit if you want to. Whereas splitting one big commit into smaller ones is going to be much harder than combining a bunch of smaller ones. So I personally would break this big commit into a few smaller ones. Let's say updating the layouts right here, removing some blog posts, removing the contact page, and maybe one updating the CSS. And that way, specifically in the future, if I want to find this specific commit where I updated the CSS last, I can go through and find that pretty easily. And of course, this is all even more relevant if you're working on a team, because it's not just going to be your commit, it's going to be your teammates' commits as well. So you're going to be looking through some code that you didn't even write yourself. So having your team write really good commits is going to make the whole process a lot easier. And as a good rule of thumb, I've heard that you should keep the git commit messages as short as possible. So if I'm making a git commit message right here, I've heard that you should try to keep this under 50 characters. And I agree, just the shorter the better. Because if you're typing out a really long commit, maybe your commit message, you want to have it be something like deleted a bunch of pages and updated the layouts and changed the CSS and on and on and on. If you put all that in one commit message, then that's probably a good sign for yourself that you're adding too much to one single commit, and you should break it up into a few smaller ones. And so I really recommend just keeping your commit messages short right here. Now, if you really want to add some more information to your git commit, don't just make a super long git commit message. What you can do is you can add multiple lines actually. So if I just run git commit right here, then I can insert one line up here. So I can say removed the contact page, but you can also add additional lines below this. So you can say removed it because something else if you want a little bit more space, but I would just keep the summary up here short and brief. And then if people really want to learn more, then they can read the rest of the commit message. And if you don't want to open up an editor to do this, what you can do is just run git commit -m commit subject and then another -m and then commit body. And then that will give it multiple lines like I just showed you inside the editor. But this is nice if you want to add more information just from the command line. But that's how I write my git commits now. And now if I have to go back through my git log and see all my old commits and go through them, it's just much cleaner to find everything. And I don't have any more commits where it's just one giant commit saying updated a whole bunch of stuff. And so if you just take a little bit more time and think about your commits before you commit them, think about the specific files you're adding to this commit and why they're in this specific commit, I think your team and your future self will thank you.